So guys, now it's time to join the upper part and the lower part of the dress together in order to make a complete dress. Don't forget, we've drafted the upper part for the back panel. Now we want to add the lower part, that is the measurement taken from the waist level downward to the desired dress length. So in doing this required a simple calculation. This is because we are making a panel dress, and when making a panel dress, the first step is to decide the wideness of each panel. Don't forget, we are making an 8 pieces dress in total, 4 pieces for the back and 4 pieces for the front. Now for each of the panel, how wide do you want it to be? This has to do with the amount of fabrics you are working with. For this type of style, I will advise you don't use anything lesser than 4 yards of fabrics in order to achieve your desired results. So from 4 yards upward is what you can use. 4 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards, 12 yards, as many as possible. It all depends on your preference, but don't use below 4 yards. So for the sake of this tutorial, I will be using 4 yards as an example. Let's assume I want to use 4 yards in constructing the panel dress. I need 4 panels for the back and 4 panels for the front. In total, that makes it 8 panels. The first thing is, how many inches do we have in 1 yard of fabrics? 1 yard of fabrics standard wise is 36 inches. And I want to work with 4 yards. So 4 yards will gives me 36 multiplied by 4. So that is equals to 144 inches. So which means for fabrics of 4 yards, I will get 144 inches from it. And I want to use 8 panels. I want to have 8 panels. I'm cutting out 8 panels from 144 inches of fabrics. Very simple. So all I will do is just to divide 144 by 8. 144 divided by 8 equals to 18. So this calculation is for 4 yards. So for each panel of my dress, I must have up to 18 inches. With this formula, I will not have lesser or more. I will have enough fabrics to cut out my dress. There will not be any shortage. It will not be an issue like I've cut out 6 pieces and what I have left will not be enough. So you have to go through this calculation. Don't be in a hurry to do your calculation. So this is for 4 yards, as I said. If it is 6 yards, all you need to do is just to replace 4 with 6. Replace 4 with 6. So that will be 36 multiplied by 6. If it is 8 yards you are working with, that is 36 multiplied by 8. You are working with 12 yards, 36 multiplied by 12. And whatever you have as your answer will be divided by the number of panel of dress you are making. So this method is applied to any number of panels you are making, because your panel dress can either be 6 panels, 8 panels, it can be 12 panels, it can be 24 panels. It all depends on the style. So the method is applicable to all panel dresses. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm using 4 yards of fabrics. So the wideness of each panel of my dress will be 18 inches. Now, I have my pattern paper laid, as you can see. The length of my pattern is the full length from the shoulder to the desired dress length. So that is what I measured. The measurement I am using for the waist to the desired dress length is 39.5 inches. So 39.5 inches plus the waist level of 17 inches. So what I got is the measurement I took to measure this out. So here is my starting point and the dress length is downward over there. Now for my pattern paper, from the edges of my pattern paper to the straight line I drew here, which is the one I drew out with my black pencil, is the number of fabrics I just calculated, which has to do with 18 inches. Though I don't have up to 18 inches, but let's assume this is 18 inches. So this is supposed to be 18 inches. From here to here, it has to be up to 18 inches because I'm using 4 yards of fabrics. And I want the wideness of each panel to be 18 inches. So I'm just working with the amount of pattern paper I have. So I'm assuming from here to here is 18 inches. So this is my back panel that has been slashed into 2 places, as you can see. So what I will be doing first is to get the midpoint at the lower part and the upper part. You can see I put this aside. I'm working on this piece first. So I will just fold this like so. And I will notch the midpoint. So this is the lower part, and at the upper part as well, I will notch the midpoint. So guys, now I have the upper part and the lower part of my pattern notched, as you can see. Then I got the midpoint of the starting point line, which I marked out with my black marker. So the next step now is to place my pattern like so. I will place my pattern, then mark out the length of the pattern. So on the length point, which is here, so you can see what I have here. So on this exact point I marked out, I will mark out the midpoint as well. Okay, so the midpoint I have at the lower part, which I notched, it has to align with this midpoint and this midpoint, like so. After marking it out and placing your pattern, please, you have to confirm the measurement you have here, from these edges to this side to this line, and the one you have from these edges as well to this point are equal. Make sure you have the same measurements. Whatever you have left from this edge to these edges has to be the same as what you have from these edges to these edges. And don't forget, this line is not on a straight line. The back waistline is not on a straight line. So whatever you have from here to here and what you have from here to here has to be the same, because we are sharing this equally on both sides. So after placing my pattern like so, then I will tape it down. So I will make sure the pattern is laying flat on the new pattern paper. So now that I have my pattern placed properly, and I make sure the center of my pattern falls on the center of this space. So the next step now is to insert the dress length, which is the measurement taken from the natural waistline to the desired dress length. So the measurement I'm working with is 39 inches. And because the back waistline is not on a straight line, I will have to take the measurement on both sides. I will measure here downward, and I will measure this point also downward, 39.5 inches. So after marking the 2 points on the back waistline, so this is the first one and this is the second one. So I will just take my straight ruler and connect the 2 points together, and I will make sure it touches the edges of my pattern paper and the other side of the pattern paper, which is here. I will extend it like so. So this is going to be the dress length. So after inserting your dress length, then you will need to add your hem allowance. The hem allowance you'll be adding has to do with how you want to construct your dress. Is it going to be with lining or without lining? If your dress is not going to be with lining, then you will need up to 1.5 inches as your hem allowance. But if it is going to be with lining, you don't need more than half of an inch as your hem allowance. So I'm assuming you don't need lining for the dress, so I'm adding 1.5 as the hem allowance. So as you can see, I took the measurements on both sides. So don't forget to measure the two sides of your pattern because it is not on a straight line. Then I will label this as the hem allowance. So you can just ignore this. So guys, the next step is to add my seam allowance. Before connecting this downward to the dress length, I will need to add my seam allowance. I've not added any seam allowance on my pattern at all. So I need half of an inch on the waistline. I need half of an inch on the dart side in order to join the two sides point together, which is here. Half of an inch here, and at the upper part, half of an inch. But as for the zipper allowance side, I don't need any seam allowance because the zipper allowance is there already. When you are measuring your dress length, it has to start from the seam allowance. Please don't forget, so that you will not have a shortage. So what I'm trying to say is you should measure your seam allowance out before measuring out your dress length. So I have my seam allowances added all around my pattern, as you can see. Half of an inch at the upper part, half of an inch on the dart side, and half of an inch on the waist level. And as I said earlier, you must have inserted your seam allowance before measuring out your dress length. When I was measuring my own dress length, I measured from here, exactly on the waistline. Okay, I've not added my seam allowance. If I go ahead and construct my dress like so, it will be half of an inch shorter. So this has to be taken from the seam allowance point downward. Then I trace out the zipper allowance side of my pattern. I trace it out on the new pattern paper. Okay, so I have this side done. Then all the horizontal lines I have here, I extended the lines to get to the new seam allowance line, which is a new pattern paper. Now the next step now is to transfer these lines with my tracing wheels, so that after cutting out your fabrics, you'll be able to notch the points. So you will know where the waist level, the empire level, the bust level falls. So, and this part is very important as well, so that you will have a stress-free construction. So by the time I separate this pattern, I will just make it a straight line. I will know where all the point falls. In the zipper allowance, so I have it marked here and at the upper part. So guys, the next step is to connect the waistline to the dress length point in order to have this as a single piece. As I said earlier, based on our reference image, there is no joining on the waistline. So this, which is the upper part and the lower part, has to go together. So all I need to do now is to place my ruler on the waistline, then connect it downward to the dress length point. Then I will connect it downward like so with my straight ruler. Then I stopped on the hem allowance line. So this is for one side, and I will come to the other side and repeat the same process from the waist point to the edges. And I have this. You can see how beautiful it looks. If the lower part is wider than this, then definitely you will have the shape more wider than this, but because of the measurement I have here, so that is why it looks like a bit narrow. So that was why I said if you want this to look very beautiful, you have to use more than 4 yards of fabrics. The least you can use is 4 yards, but if you can go ahead and use up to 6 or 8 yards, wow, it will look so beautiful. So now I can separate this pattern, which is the upper part. I have all my lines traced out, so I will just mark it out clearly. So guys, I have my pattern separated, as you can see. Then I drew out my lines and labeled them appropriately. Okay, so this is the upper part, this is the chest level, the bust level, the empire level, the waist level, and this is the zipper allowance. So this part is the dart line. If you know you can forget, you can label this part also as that. So I can proceed in cutting out the pattern. Guys, I have this cut out, as you can see. This is the upper part and this is the lower part. Now I have this as a single piece. Then you can go ahead and label this as the back center piece. Why this will be cut out in 2. That's 2 pieces. Guys, now it's time to cut out the second piece of the back panel. Don't forget, we cut out the back panel into 2 places. So this is the first piece. This one I just cut out is the first piece, and we need to cut out the second piece as well. So I've placed this just the way I placed the first piece. I notched the midpoint on the pattern. Okay, then I drew a straight line like so. Then I got the midpoint on the pattern. I made sure the midpoint I marked out on the fresh pattern paper aligned with the midpoint I notched on the back panel. Then I tape it down. So this line is my starting point. So I make sure the HPS point align with the starting point. Then on the waistline, I added half of an inch of seam allowance. This is the dart side. On the dart side, I added half of an inch of seam allowance. On the neckline area, half of an inch. On the shoulder line, half of an inch. On the armhole area, half of an inch. And by the side, which is the side seam, I added 1 inch downward. So the upper part is settled. Then we can proceed in connecting the upper part together with the lower part. Now, the length of this paper is the measurement I'm working with plus hem allowance. That is 39.5 inches plus 1.5 inches of the hem allowance. So all I need to do is just to pick my ruler, then connect this point to that edge and this point also to the other edge. As you can see, now I have the upper part and the lower part joined together, and I have my seam allowance added as well. So all I have to do now is to remove this piece, then cut out the dress pattern. So guys, now I have the 2 pieces cut out for the back panel. This is the 2 pieces I slashed. You know, I have it as a single piece, and I slashed this after cutting out the dart, and I have it in 2 pieces like so. Now we have joined the lower parts together with the upper parts, and we have it as a single piece. No joining on the waistline. Then when you are ready to cut out your fabrics, for each piece you will need to fold your fabrics. Your fabrics is going to be on fold. So after cutting, you will have this in 2 places, that is 2 pieces. You will have this also in 2 places, that is 2 pieces. Then all you need to do is just to join the pieces together. They are going together. Then when you are cutting out, immediately after cutting, Before separating your pattern from your fabrics, make sure you notch all the appropriate places, like the chest level, the bust level, the empire level, and the waist level on each pieces, so that when you are joining the pieces together, you will make sure the chest level match up with the chest level, the bust level match up with the bust level, empire level together with the empire level, and the waist level together with the waist level. This is what will bring out the beauty of your dress, and with this you will not have a shortage or excess. Now the back panel is settled. Let's go to the construction of the front panel.